Have you ever truly been alone? Not just physically isolated, but truly, utterly alone in the quiet dark, where every creak and whisper feels like a breath on your neck. Where your own shadow seems to detach, to move just a little too fast, a little too wrong, because that's where the real fear begins. Not in the monsters under the bed, but in the silence that allows them to exist, to breathe, right there beside you. Tonight, we're delving into a chilling account from a former night auditor, Alex. He worked at an old hotel, the kind with more history than guests, the kind that whispers its secrets when the world goes to sleep. It's a story that will make you question every sound in the dead of night, every fleeting shadow, because some places, they just hold on to things, and sometimes, those things decide to hold on to you. Alex picked up the night shift at the Blackwood Manor Hotel, mainly for the quiet. It was an old place, sitting on the edge of town, surrounded by dense woods that seemed to swallow the light. Victorian architecture, all dark wood and faded velvet, with a scent that was a mix of antique polish, dust, and something else, something faintly metallic, like old pennies or dried blood. He was a college kid, trying to save up, and the graveyard shift suited him. Most nights were dead quiet, literally. A few late check-ins, maybe a guest calling for an extra towel. Easy money. He started in late fall. The air was crisp, the leaves crunching underfoot as he walked from the bus stop. Inside, the heating always struggled to keep the chill at bay, leaving pockets of icy air in the long, winding hallways. His routine was pretty solid. At 11 p.m., he'd take over from the evening receptionist, log a few things, make a pot of coffee, and then settle in behind the imposing, dark oak counter. The lobby was grand, with a massive chandelier that cast dancing shadows when the light caught its crystals just right. Or sometimes when it just flickered. The first few weeks were uneventful. He'd read textbooks, listen to podcasts, occasionally wander the ground floor to make sure everything was locked up tight. The hotel had 3 floors of guest rooms, but the 3rd floor was usually empty, reserved for overflow during peak season. Alex rarely had reason to go up there. It was just dark, and always colder than the rest of the building. The subtle things started maybe a month in. He'd be in the back office, processing paperwork, and he'd swear he heard the old bell on the front desk ding. He'd walk out, expecting to see a late arrival, but the lobby would be empty. The street outside, deserted. He'd chalk it up to a draft, or maybe a loose connection in the old bell mechanism. It happened a few more times, always when he was alone, always when he was just out of sight. Then came the sounds. Faint thumps from upstairs, like something falling or dragging. But when he checked the guest log, the rooms directly above the lobby, on the 2nd floor, were vacant. He'd walk to the foot of the grand staircase, listen, and the sounds would stop. The silence that followed was always heavier, somehow, than the noise itself. It felt like something was holding its breath. One particularly foggy night, a couple staying in room 207 came down, pale and visibly shaken. The man, a nervous type, asked Alex if the hotel had a resident child. Alex, confused, said no. Well, the man stammered. We kept hearing giggling and footsteps, small ones, right above our room, all night. We thought it was kids running in the hallway, but it sounded like it was in the room above us. And when my wife went to check, the sounds would stop. The floor above us is empty, right? Alex assured him the 3rd floor was empty and offered them a room on the 1st floor. He felt a shiver run down his spine. Room 207 was directly beneath room 307, and he knew, deep down, that the sounds weren't just his imagination. After the couple moved, he decided to do a full sweep. He grabbed his heavy set of master keys and his flashlight. The elevator was old and creaky, so he took the stairs. The 1st floor was quiet, expected. The 2nd floor felt slightly colder than the lobby, but nothing overtly strange. But as he ascended to the 3rd floor, a palpable chill descended. The air was thick, heavy, carrying that faint, metallic scent. He pulled his jacket tighter. The hallway was dimly lit by a single, flickering bulb at the far end. The carpet was threadbare, the wallpaper peeling in places. Each step he took echoed in the oppressive silence. As he walked past room 302, he swore he felt a blast of icy air, like a freezer door opening. He stopped. The door to 302 was slightly ajar, maybe an inch or two. He was certain he'd locked all rooms during his initial check-in. His heart hammered. He slowly pushed the door open. The room was dark, the curtains drawn. He flicked on his flashlight, sweeping the beam across the small, dusty space. A single bed, an old wooden dresser, a chipped nightstand. Everything was covered in a fine layer of dust, nothing out of place. He sighed, telling himself it was just a draft, the old building settling. He closed the door, making sure the lock clicked. Over the next few weeks, things intensified. Alex started feeling watched, a persistent prickling sensation on the back of his neck, especially when he was alone in the lobby. He'd glance up at the dark, reflective windows or the framed portraits of long-dead Blackwood family members, and swear he saw a fleeting shadow just beyond his peripheral vision, a shape that didn't belong. He started getting less sleep. Every time he closed his eyes at home, the faint sounds of the hotel would echo in his mind. The distant thumps, the phantom bell, the almost whispers. His coffee intake soared. His once skeptical mind was now trying to piece together a terrifying puzzle. One night, around 3 a.m., he was in the back office, filling out the daily reports. The hotel was utterly silent, not a single guest checked in on the second floor, and the first floor was quiet. Suddenly he heard it, distinctly, a low, mournful hum, like a child singing a lullaby, barely audible, but there. It was coming from upstairs. He froze, his pen clattering against the desk. He held his breath, straining to listen. The humming continued, soft and sorrowful. It seemed to be coming from the third floor, from room 302. His blood ran cold. He remembered the slightly ajar door, the icy blast of air. This wasn't a draft. This wasn't the building settling. This was something else. A primal fear seized him. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to lock himself in the office and wait for dawn. But a morbid curiosity, a terrifying need to understand, propelled him forward. He grabbed the master key for the third floor, his flashlight, and slowly, deliberately, walked out of the office. The lobby was a cavern of shadows. The chandelier, for once, was completely still, reflecting nothing but the oppressive darkness. He took the stairs, his footsteps agonizingly loud in the dead silence. Each step up to the third floor felt like ascending into an unknown, ancient horror. The air grew colder, the metallic tang stronger, almost coppery. The humming grew a little louder, a little clearer. It was a child's voice, fragile and haunting. He reached the top of the stairs. The single, flickering bulb at the end of the hallway was out. Total darkness. He fumbled for his flashlight, his hand trembling so badly, it took him a few tries to switch it on. The beam cut through the gloom, painting eerie patterns on the peeling wallpaper. The humming, the lullaby, was definitely coming from 302. His heart hammered against his ribs. It felt like a drum, echoing in his ears. He walked slowly, each step a monumental effort. As he approached room 302, the humming stopped, just like that. The silence that followed was suffocating, absolute. He stood outside the door, his breath misting in the frigid air. He could hear his own frantic heartbeat, the blood rushing in his ears. He slowly, agonizingly, reached for the doorknob. It was icy cold beneath his fingers. He twisted it, slowly, and pushed. The door swung open silently, revealing the pitch-black interior of room 302. The dust was still there, undisturbed. The bed, dresser, nightstand, nothing, utterly, terrifyingly empty. He swept his flashlight beam across the room, searching every corner, every shadow. Nothing moved, nothing was there. But then he heard it, not a hum, not a giggle, a whisper, right behind him. So close, he felt the icy breath on his neck. It was a child's voice, thin and reedy, uttering a single horrifying word. Play. Alex didn't scream. He couldn't. His throat was locked in terror. He didn't turn around. He just ran. He dropped the flashlight, plunging the hallway into darkness, and sprinted down the stairs, not daring to look back, not daring to stop until he burst through the lobby doors and into the cold, forgiving night. He didn't even bother to lock up. He just ran and kept running until he was miles away from the Blackwood Manor Hotel, until the first faint rays of dawn touched the horizon. He never went back. He called in sick, then quit over the phone. He He never told anyone exactly what happened that night, not in detail. He couldn't. How do you explain the sound of a child's voice whispering in an empty, locked room? How do you explain the feeling of something inhuman breathing down your neck? Alex still has nightmares. The old hotel, the dusty room, the chilling whisper. He's often awake in the dead of night, convinced he hears the faint hum of a lullaby carried on the wind. He knows with absolute certainty that some places are more than just old buildings. They're containers, prisons for things that don't want to be forgotten, things that want to play. And sometimes, when you're truly, utterly alone in the dark, they find a way out. They find a way to reach you, and they whisper your name.